Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and this is an unboxing without coffee. A little off-brand for the channel, but we're going to do what we can. This is actually more than an unboxing. This is a conversation around Spirit Island and Marvel Zombies, or more specifically, these versions of Spirit Island and Marvel Zombies, and the way our hobby is continuing to grow in fascinating, endearing, lovely ways that are bringing more and more people into the hobby. And also, I hope both these games are good. That's what I hope. I hope both these games are good. Now, this one I've played. I played both of them in a manner of speaking, not these particular versions, but let's figure out which one we want to dive into. Let's start with Marvel Zombies Heroes Resistance. You see, both of these, if you don't know what's going on, both of these are adaptations of very, very popular games, although in different ways. One of these is an adaptation of a popular game that will at some point be out, but isn't technically out yet. The other is an adaptation of a popular game that has been out for years, and currently, as I film this, is getting has an active expansion currently on backer kit. You can go ahead and check that out. Spirit Island, I want to say Nature's Wrath. That sounds right, but I don't actually know. So we have two different adaptations with different audiences, different presentations as far as the availability. Marvel Zombies, I believe you can get from Walmart. I'm not sure. I got it from Amazon. Then we have this one over here, Horizons of Spirit Island, which I got from Target. Both of these incredibly affordable, by the way. We have a $35 version of Marvel Zombies and a $35 version of Horizons of Spirit Island. Two incredibly accessible versions of games that, again, haven't played these specific versions, but I've played both of their big brothers, and these are fantastic games. The idea that we can get these into people's hands for a mere $35 is awesome, and also a little intimidating considering how much money some people, myself included, spent on this particular version of this particular game. So let's go and take a look. What we have: Marvel Zombies Heroes Resistance, a zombicide game. This comes from Marvel, from Spin Master, from Guillotine Games, and come on, it's a whole lot of logos all in one corner. And what do we have to show for it? Well, we have our typical come on little thing over here, and we have Marvel Zombies Heroes Resistance, a rulebook that is very come on length in size. I mean, I've played this. I probably do have to refresh myself on this, but this is basically, I assume, you know, honestly, I don't even know. I don't know how either of these games differ from their big brothers. I don't. I know both these games exist, which is as far as we can go so far. We have walkers, brutes, and runners over here as far as the different enemies. This is Heroes Resistance. This is what we got over here. We have a whole bunch of zombies we're going to be trying to take down as we fight as our various heroes. Just the Heroes Resistance. What are we? We play as heroes in this one. We have zombie villains we're fighting against, the abominations, I guess. But yeah, that's what we have over here, this base game over here. We got a 20, 30-page rulebook, although some of it's missions. We have a bunch of missions showing up in the back of this rulebook. This is a very typical command rulebook, just in a smaller, more accessible form. In fact, this actually puts the rules at a very accessible 21 pages. 21 pages, and that counts if you start from over here, from page 5 for setup, page 6 to 21. That's 15 pages of accessible command-style rules. Overall, we'll take a look over here. But they're taking this game. I mean, a typical zombicide game tends to run you somewhere in the range of, I don't know, $80 MSRP, and this thing's available, which means cheaper than $80, but still not cheap. And this thing's over here is $35 from Amazon, which is insane. So overall, the price point and accessibility here is just off the chart, which is good, because one of the things we're seeing more and more are various big box retailers, very often Target and Walmart, Amazon, wherever. I don't know if Amazon's actually doing any official deals, but we're seeing people sit here and say, the hobby's growing, and we want a piece of it. And the way we want a piece of it is by making something accessible that people can get their hands on in one way or another. Now, some of the compromises are in play. We have only 4 tiles over here as opposed to the usual 9 that you find in the command game, but still, that's 4 tiles with 4 degrees of just being able to create the map that you need, the situation that you have. Sure, it compromises in some sense on the scale of the game you're playing, but it doesn't necessarily compromise on more than that. The variability will be different, but you'll have your daily bugle, you'll have things being broken into, you'll have the maps that you can create and the situations and arenas that you can define as you try to build out the world around you in different ways. Or as I try to build out the world around me. There we go. I made it work. I made it work. We have an official sort of map that mostly kind of fits together. I say mostly because I don't actually have this fitting together, but close enough as far as these go. But we have our tiles. I don't know if they're the exact same as our regular zombicide tiles. I don't know if they're different anyway. I don't know if they're 4. Again, I don't know the differences and similarities. I know the Marvel Zombies system. I've played that. I've played both the heroes and the, well, villains and all, as far as the game system goes. We have our punch board. Sorry, I forgot to do the punch board over here. We have very thick, very solid quality punch board over here. These over here, these are solid as far as the general, I guess, solidness of things. We have our dials, which are, you know, a little, grabbing our little tokens somewhere in this bag over here, where we'll create our dials. And then we have rows, well, we have doors. We can have our doors as well, because when you have your tiles and your map boards over here, you want to make sure to have your doors in whatever way that's going to be punched through. An open door, a closed door, just slowly punching through. Again, this is your typical Zombicide experience for the most part. No major changes at the core, but the general idea, the accessibility of this, that's what they're trying to preserve in one way or another. We have our villains over here. Let's put this back over here. We have our villains as far as just these sheets of villains, standees instead of miniatures, because again, sacrifices do have to be made when you're trying to make an $80 product into a $35 product. And those sacrifices in this case are standees. Although, as I've seen many people point out, if you have other Zombicide properties, you can certainly go ahead and adapt that however you want to make it the game you need, while still using some form of zombies available in some degree, shape, or form. If I can get this to fit back in. Perfect. There we go. So that's what we have over here. Then we have our cards. We have our actual hero cards, which again, size-wise, don't know what they're going to be compared to the other system. This is a different game, but this is, I mean, this is Marvel Zombies. I don't even know the scale of the heroes. We have a whole bunch of heroes over here, and what's the scale of these guys? We have our villains, our heroes, our Marvel abominations, a whole bunch of things over here, but these sculpts look solid. I mean, just looking at these for the first time ever, these look like solid miniatures. They have the newer sculpted bases you're used to seeing from Command titles nowadays. We have our Abomination Iron Man over here, you know, just sitting there, casting his little sword. We have a, not sword, his blast. We have Captain America, zombie Captain America, just sitting there, doing his thing. We have Wanda Zombie over here. Wanda Zombie, if you can get that to focus. Wanda Zombie, who we're not going to do any spoilers about any movies or TV shows, but that's Wanda. Wanda just doing her thing, being all zombie up over here. And then Doctor Strange, who I'm very sad to see as a zombie, and has his own different sculpts for when he's a zombie. I mean, these are all different, unique sculpts compared to what you can get in the official version of, well, Marvel Zombies. That will be available in some way, shape, and form. And these are, well, these are all kinds of different things. I am curious. I don't remember the details here. Some of you may know. Are these, did they have a zombie Doctor Strange? They had a non-zombie Doctor Strange. I don't remember if they, I don't remember what they had over here. Now, some of these sculpts are better than others, that's for sure. We have our Hulk over here. We have Spider-Man. Just different options over here as far as the heroes we'll be playing as. This Hulk lacks some degree of detail compared to a typical Command sculpt, but looks overall solid. We have Spider-Man over here, or Spider-Woman. Is that Spider-Man? That's Spider-Man over there. Spider-Man, as well as Black Panther. Black Panther just sitting there, ready to go ahead and take on the world. Again, some of the sculpts needing a little bit more detail. We have Winter Soldier, as well as Ant-Man. All these characters just sitting here for your little Zombicide enjoyment, your Marvel Zombies enjoyment. Here we got Ant-Man. Is that, no, that's the Wasp. I'm pretty sure that's the Wasp. We got, again, I have to pick our characters, but I'm pretty sure it's the Wasp over there. We have the Wasp over here, on some nuggets over there. Screwdriver could fit in there just fine. And then we have Vision. So we have our cast, we have our crew, we have our characters that will be taking the world by storm in this version of, well, Marvel Zombies. It's all fitting back nicely. We have our standees, these little things, because what else are you going to do when you have a whole host of just baddies that currently don't have a miniature, and instead you have to go ahead and have your zombie on one of these. But this makes the game more accessible. It makes the game cheaper. It potentially gets it in more people's hands, and honestly, the color over here, there might be people who even prefer this. I'm not one of them. I like my gray plastic just fine, but having this on the table is certainly not a bad thing. Having a horde of these on the table does still give you the appearance, the presence of zombies in your game. We still have our typical dice. This gives you the Marvel Zombies experience. You're seeing all the core components here that you can expect from a Zombicide game, and this is giving you that. And it's giving to you that at a more accessible price point that makes the game easier to get into others' hands. And it's frustrating sometimes. Sometimes it's frustrating to like see versions of your games available for cheaper or taken apart in different ways, especially if you paid for the Kickstarter, and it can be a little irritating. And we've seen this in other games too. Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition, going to Target for like 6 months in an exclusive deal and whatnot. And you see that degree of frustration that does exist, and I get the frustration people have. I absolutely do. Because sometimes it's hard to see yourself pay a lot for something and then see a version of it being cheaper. And even though that version is watered down, that can be frustrating. But if the net result is more people in the hobby, if the net result is more people who are pulled in, more people who have an opportunity to get something cheaper, I'm always for it. I've been for it with Terraforming Mars Expedition when that first happened. I'm for it here. I'm for it in any situation. And obviously not all situations are equal. When you have a degree of exclusivity that you thought was there, it does change the conversation. Here we have our bystanders that you can go ahead and save and get their abilities. Wong! We have Wong! We have Happy Hogan! Oh my gosh, we're going to have to let Hogan die. Then you have the various abominations. Scarlet Witch. Superheroes must re-roll all hits while in her zone. We have, where is Doctor Strange? Doctor Strange acts as a spawn point. When he activates, if he's not in a zone with superhero, oh, that's not the same one. There were some people, I think maybe Hero Doctor Strange acted as a spawn point. Then we have our little cards full of abominations in different ways, just spawning different zombies into our zone. Extra activations. We have our, what are these over here? These are going to be ambush. Oh, these are searching cards. You'll be searching for your power cards. Because in Marvel Zombies, you have powers instead of equipment. Powers that you can earn. You can discard them as one-time use abilities effectively. Agile. Discard when enemies enter your zone and immediately move one zone, ignoring enemies. Inspirational. Discard during your turn and spend power over there. Another superhero within range 1 may immediately perform a free action. You have all these options for these cards you can basically try to get your hands on. They're all without art. I don't remember if the other version had art. But this feels like a command product. It feels like a watered-down command product, but not in a bad way. In a way that compromises in some areas on what the game is in order to give you a product, in order to give others a product that they can actually get their hands on for a price point that is very, very reasonable. We haven't even looked at the heroes over here. Let's take a look at these cards. We have Spider-Man, Heroic Rescue. Once during your turn, you may spend a power to move one bystander or one superhero from an adjacent zone into your zone, giving you a degree of Spider-Man rescuing. If we take a look at the third power on Black Panther, Kinetic Feedback. Each time you would suffer wounds, you may spend a power, roll 1 die for each wound. On a 3+, prevent that wound, and eliminate a walker, brute, or runner in your zone. We have the Wasp, this middle ability, Biosynthetic Wings. Once during your turn, you may spend an action to perform 1 move action, spending moving of 3 zones and ignoring enemies. These are solid actions that will give you energy beams. What do you have over here? When drawing heroic traits, you may draw 2 and select 1, shuffling the other one back into the traits deck. So he's adaptive, giving you options of being able to see what you really need over there instead of just hoping for the best. Hologram. At the start of each enemy phase, you may spend a power and select 1 zone within range 2. Enemies treat that zone as having a super in it when activating during this phase. So we have all these characters with all their abilities. And one of the nice things about the Zombicide system that they adapted over here, that they put into place with Marvel Zombies compared to other systems, is we're not seeing hordes of abilities that are the same. We're seeing a ton, an absolute ton of uniqueness in the Zombicide system. Every character, every ability. Those 6 characters, that's 18 unique abilities from 6 characters. And as you get more content, as you get the expansion stuff, as you integrate this with the larger Marvel Zombies that you have, and as you figure it all out, you are left with an absolute ton of content, an absolute ton of abilities, all for a very reasonable price point of $35. This was $35 on Amazon, showed up 2 days later, and now I have Marvel Zombies. I'm looking forward to it, because I like Marvel Zombies. I've already played Marvel Zombies. It is my favorite version of the Zombicide system. And then we have Horizons of Spirit Island. Horizons of Spirit Island, a game by Eric Roos. This is going to give you the Target family-friendly version. This one, I believe Marvel Zombies mostly contains, I should say Heroes Resistance mostly contains the same core DNA of the Zombicide system. I don't know for sure, but from what I've seen, it seems to have the core DNA, just on a smaller scale. Whereas Horizons of Spirit Island seems like it has most of the core DNA, but some aspects do seem to be different in some senses, although I'm not entirely sure. Just from what I've seen, this one, maybe it's the same idea. Maybe it's just broken down to more accessible, but I feel there were some smaller changes made to make this more accessible in a way that the other one wasn't. We have a quick start guide. We have our cooperative settler strategy game with a rulebook that, the fact that this is a Target rulebook, I mean, this rulebook over here is 30 pages long with all the stuff over here. This is a Target rulebook. I remember once upon a time reading a post on Board Game Geek about somebody who was commenting, not critically, but they're commenting about these boards. I need better boards, but these are fine. These will do. These will do. They were commenting on how they were watching somebody return Pandemic, I believe, to Target because they bought Pandemic, and Pandemic, they're like, how could you expect anyone to play this game? The rule book's like 6 pages long. And that's not said critically, it's just the nature of expectations. I think you have to know your target audience in different ways. One of the things I found interesting is I just recently reviewed a game called Zoo Tycoon, and I think Zoo Tycoon is excellent. I also think it's very, 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 very deep, and has a lot of strategy and a lot of things to be mindful of, and I think the target audience are going to be a bunch of people who play video games who aren't necessarily going to be reading and understanding 25-page rulebooks with a lot of nuance and intricacy. And I think you have to know your audience and adapt to your audience in different ways, and that's a balance that everyone's going to have to figure out in different ways as we continue to expand the hobby in places where people don't always know what's going on. We have our Blight pool over here. If there's ever no Blight, you lose the game. We have our Fear pool. Are there any changes made to the size of the board? I don't know if there are. Looks like player count based because we have 11 and 8 over here. So this must be a player count based board. Yeah, it looks like 2 over here. And is it 4? 4, 3, 3 over here. Is this a 2 to 3 player game? What's the game count over here? It says 1 to 3 players. Interesting. So this specifically goes up to 1 to 3 players. These would be the island boards, which normally in regular Spirit Island would you be putting them together. But they give you a straight up board over here, so you can mess with that whatever way you want. And then we have our major and minor powers. And one of the nice things about getting this system over here is if you do get this system, you have 8 new spirits. So how well they integrate with your traditional Spirit Island content, different conversation. But both of these, again, $35. $35 for 8 new spirits. Contrast with Nature's Wrath or whatnot on Kickstarter right now. If you want more spirit variability, you'll be paying a lot more for that. You'll get more stuff. There's more content. There's more things being added. It's not just new spirits. But this is a very accessible price point for a very accessible game. And it's a good opportunity to dive into Spirit Island for the first time. Or seemingly a good opportunity. I haven't actually played this yet. But we have a whole bunch of cards over here. Cards that I'm happy to just leave and mix into my Spirit Island system. Because more content for me is always, not always, sometimes, often, a good thing. We have more cards over here. You know, the Gift of Living Energy. We have the Gift of Power. Target spirit gains a minor power card. This is where I'm going to have to go ahead and look to see what stuff has overlap with my system, because I don't want to mix in a bunch of overlaps. 9 Root Biters, push up to 2. Land of Haunted Embers, Lure of the Unknown, Nature's Resilience. These, I think these are all new, but I don't know. Rain of Blood, these may not be new. I'm going to have to take a look through what we have over here, because some of these do seem familiar, as far as even just the names of them. Some of them do seem different. Steam Vents, Uncanny Melting. I do have to take a look to see what we have over here. Some seem familiar, some not, but we have those. We have our terror levels. We have more cards. These are going to be our specific ones to the spirits. These are definitely going to be unique as far as the specific spirit-based cards. So that's where you're completely safe as far as these go. And then, of course, we'll have... What do we have over here? We have more minor powers, and then we have all the fear cards you'll have to deal with. And again, I'll have to look through to make sure there's completely unique content before integrating. Accelerated Rot, Blazing Renewal, Cleansing Floods, Dissolve the Bonds of Kinship. I'm pretty sure... Entwined Power. I don't know every single card in Spirit Island. The names are always sound great, but a lot of these do sound similar. So I don't know what we have over here. There might be some degree of similarity. Vigor of the Breaking Dawn. Some of these are definitely similar. We'll take a look at this, but either way, I'll either be mixing this in or not mixing this in, depending on just how much similar overlap content there is. But this is what we have over here. We have these cards. We also have, what do we have over here? These are going to be our actual generation cards, so your jungle cards and whatnot that generate the actual stuff. This is a dialed down Spirit Island. It's missing a lot of the stuff you'd have otherwise. It's missing some of the scenario content, some of the variability, but most importantly, and also it doesn't have like wooden bits, it has these stuff, which honestly, when it comes to Spirit Island, I might even prefer these to what Spirit Island gives you. I do not love the miniatures in Spirit Island, not one bit. But past that, we have these over here. Let's go ahead and push this in. This is what we have. We have our board, which gives you a less variable experience as far as setup goes, but does the job. And then lastly, we have our actual spirits. We have Devouring Teeth Lurk. Devouring Teeth Lurk Underfoot. This is definitely a new one. This is definitely something new. We have a high offense, low control, low fear, low defense, low utility. Territorial Aggression. Your damage dealing powers do +1 damage. Ooh, that could be fun. This adds +1 damage total for the power, even if the power damages multiple invaders or each invader. Okay, so it can boost, fine. So it gives +1 damage. That could be fun over there. We have that. We have different options here. This is just a high amount of damage. Eyes Watch from the Trees. Dahan Trust the Watchers. After one of your powers adds defense to a single land, gather up to 1 into that land. That could be fun. Fathomless Mud of the Swamp. Often no firm foundations. As you're at your sanctuary, build actions add a soldier instead of buildings. Ooh, that makes it hard for them to go ahead and do anything. Special rule, Blessed During Heat. At your sanctuaries, invaders have -1 health. Again, very solid over here. Minimum 1 health, though. Minimum 1, so that's going to make it a little harder. We have the Sunbright Whirlwind. So it looks like we have 6 new spirits. 5 new spirits? 5 new spirits being added to your Spirit Island game, giving you some more options. Not in the deluxe nice cards. I hope there's an option to get those in the harder boards, but overall, more content. But again, in both these cases, we have 2 games. 2 different games, 2 different game systems, both very popular games, both solo and cooperative games that give you different experiences as far as how you can dive into the world of board games. The fact that there's cooperative games already is something helpful, because cooperative games still are something that I think a lot of people aren't as familiar with. Despite the rise of pandemic, not the rise of the pandemic, but despite the rise of pandemic, it's still a less common genre as far as board games go, as far as these things are concerned, and introducing 2 very popular games is a solid way to get that concept of a game you can play together, of games you can work together on, games you can play solo if you want. It gives that concept into, does it say solo? It should say solo. Let me just make sure. 1 to 4 players, good, just making sure, because I know it could be played solo. I don't know if they put that in the box though, but I'm excited. I'm excited for the hobby. I'm excited for the hobby in general. I'm excited for both these games. I will hope to be diving into both these games at some point soon in some way. Spirit Island hopefully soon, because I can probably just sit down and solo that. And Marvel Zombies is one that I definitely want to share with others. That's more of a fun shared experience as far as I'm concerned. Definitely soloable. But these are two different games, two different price, but to the exact same price point, $35 in different platforms on Amazon and on Target. Target, both Amazon has free shipping if you have Prime. Target, I went ahead and got a game called Planted from Phil Walker Harding along with this just to get free shipping. So there's that. Why is Planted on this video? Because this video is about two very popular IPs being adapted to mass market friendly stuff, and I'm curious to see what it does for the hobby. Every time it happens, I'm curious to see. Every time you have a new introduction of a new game, Jaws of the Lion, Error's Expedition, whenever you have that exclusivity, that deal where someone gets an extra copy of something cheaper, and I mean, you have it, Gloomhaven, $100 plus game, and then Jaws of the Lion hit Target for $35, well actually I think it's $50 initially. $50 initially, before now being regularly available for $35 for a game with that much content and accessibility, and such an excellent experience. I'm happy that the hobby is continuing to grow. I'm happy that the hobby is continuing to see expansion into other veins, other lanes, to be shared with more people in different ways. I'm happy we're seeing the video game space branch more and more into board games, because again, it gives you that overlap. It gives you that more ways to introduce others to a hobby that I know and love and have enjoyed for a very long time, and I'm continuing to enjoy. I'm excited to dive into these versions of games I know I love. And that's basically it. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Go, Board Game Co. Hope you enjoyed this video and semi-unboxing, semi-conversation. And as always, I hope you have a good one.